Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start by going to be personal.
Yeah.
Would you allow a sick doctor treat your favorite child?
Well, a doctor is a doctor. If you can treat the...
Sir, it's a yes or no question.
Okay, yes, well, okay. Yeah,
You would.
yeah.
If yes, do you actually love this child?
Every father should love their kids. Yes, I do love my child, yeah.
Why then are you supporting that a man as President Buhari be handling Nigeria with so much illness that he's faced in the past?
Well, I guess in a democracy, the people would have to vote. And if it's the will and wish of the Nigerian people to have Buhari as a president, Buhari is their president. And as Democrats, as someone who fought for democracy, who went in and out of prison for a democratic process, who has scars on his body as a result of torture from the Nigerian military, it's my responsibility to make sure the wish and will of the Nigerian people is respected. So in the wisdom of the Nigerian people, they voted Buhari as president. Anyone who think is unfit to be president should go through the democratic process. The law courts are there. Or they wait till 2019 and vote him out of office. That is democracy. Democracy is not a choice of half and half. It's a choice of black, white, very clear. Otherwise, pick up the gun and kick him out. And if you're caught, go to prison. So the wish of the Nigerian people was in 2015, they voted Buhari as president against gridlock Jonathan. And Buhari is the president. Whoever does not, if you're not happy about it, the lagoon is there. Jump into it, easy.
So tell us briefly about the Odua People's Congress, which you were a part of, and which was, as at that time, a Yoruba self-determination group. And we would also like to know your role in it.
Well, I was fortunate enough to lead the Odua People's Congress as the Secretary General. It was a very difficult period in the self-determination group. There were quite of clashes and crises, and there was a need to input some intellectual ideology into the organization to take it away from violence and bring it back to the focus of self-determination, the rights of the Nigerian people, the confederate unit to express themselves. And I was elected in Ibadan Convention as the Secretary General under Dr. Frederick Fashion. And guess what? Dr. Beko Ransom Kuti, a very renowned Democrat, was a treasurer. So I sat on the same executive with Dr. Beko Ransom Kuti, hoping that we would sort of input some ideological focus on the OPC. And we tried our best. When our best was not enough, I resigned from the OPC. But I'm a very, very proud founding member of the OPC. I am proud of what they've done for the Yoruba nation. I regret a lot of the misdeeds that happened during the organization. And I'm actually quite pleased that Gani Adams, who is now the Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò, sort of reformed himself and hid to some of the things we've been saying, that there's a need to always blow out when there's a need to blow out, and use the wisdom and the might of the Yoruba people when it's necessary. That is why the Yoruba nation today is the only nation that will say we want self-determination by not calling Nigeria a zoo. We will say we want self-determination by not saying any other person who is not Yoruba is the enemy. We will say we want a Yoruba nation without necessarily saying that every other person is an enemy. Even if there's Oduduwa Republic, we want everybody to be able to live in Yoruba land peacefully. Any Igbo person that has lived in Lagos should be able to claim Yoruba nationality and feel part and parcel of our nation. That is how and why we are different from the Hitler of Abia, the new guy the new kid on the block.
Yes. After nearly a decade of causing mayhem in quest for ethnic supremacy, the OPC was eventually added to the U.S. government list of terrorist organizations, right? Mm-hmm. And you were quoted by the Time magazine as saying that the OPC had nothing less than 4 million persons and had trained 75,000 people to resist state oppression. I want to know, what credibility do you have to support proscription of IPOB?
Well, there's a difference between OPC and IPOB. IPOB is an ethnic supremacist organization. there's a clear difference between being an ethnic supremacist organization and a self-determination group. Ethnic supremacist is like Hitler in Germany, who said the Aryan race is superior to any other race. The Hitler of Abia believes the Igbo man is superior to any other person, any other tribe. As far as he's concerned, the Igbos are the supreme race in Nigeria. OPC did not believe in that. He believed that Nigeria is a zoo. That is not a self-determination group. That is an ethnic supremacist group. So there are clear differences. The OPC was an organization that believed in championing the Yoruba cause, but also believing in the equality of every being in Yoruba land, whether you're Igbo, whether you're Hausa, whether you're Urobo, but also believe in the right of the Yoruba people to self-determination. I personally believe in the right of Ndi Igbo to self-determination. I believe that anyone has a right to call for Biafra. It's a legitimate request. It's sanctioned by the United Nations Charter on Human and People's Rights. But where your right stops is where my right begins. So if the Hitler of Abia thinks he has the right to call the people of Nigeria zoo, Yoruba cowards, ban Yoruba pastors from the southeastern part of Nigeria, believes that he has the right to sort of roar, against the Nigerian people, we also have a right to fight propaganda with propaganda.
You seem to be the only person having this perspective.
Because I'm probably the only person left with some bit of sanity.
A few days back on Twitter, there was a thread that had the title, Kayode Ogundamisi was once an Nnamdi Kanu, and you've spent the last few days also defending yourself. A lot of people think that you hate the man Nnamdi Kanu because he is a much more successful version of yourself.
What do you call success? How do you define success? If you go to Abia, which I am going to in a couple of days, and you see the face of those young people that live in a permanent state of fear, if you look at a young Igbo child that is being told that his enemy are his fellow poor people in South Nigeria, his enemies are the fellow poor people in Northern Nigeria, people who are not told that there are as many poor suffering masses in the East as you have in the West, North and South, that is not successful. Being able to preach hate, you cannot say that as successful. In Liberia, in Sierra Leone, in Rwanda, I don't know if you're aware of Radio Rwanda, would you say the person who broadcasted on Radio Rwanda that led to the death of almost 2 million people was successful? That is not success.
Successful in the sense that he made the Nigerian elites to begin to question the basis for our nationhood. I think it was Nnamdi Kanu that led.
I think that is historically wrong, and that is actually a corruption of history. The right to self-determination will continue to be waged by Nigerians. I think we need to be very careful. Many Nigerians have died, fought for, to call for the national question. Isaac Adakaboro, I don't know if you're aware, was a Nigerian who took up arms against the Nigerian state in the Niger Delta, calling for the Nigerian state to look at the environmental degradation in the Niger Delta. In Lagos, several young Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Fulani people died during June 12 towards this national question. Chief Ganifa Wemi of late was a foremost person who talked about the national question. So I think we should be extremely careful, and I think that's part of the problem because we wield too much power to this guy that he does not have. And if he had so much power and so much influence, how come when the python came dancing, he suddenly went into thin air? I don't want us to make this about Kanu. I support Kanu's ideals in terms of the quest to look at our national question, but I oppose the method of instilling hatred in the minds of young people, because I'm not going to be here. I'm probably going to die tomorrow or in 10 years or in 15 years. But my children and Igbo children should not see themselves as enemies as a result of the message of hate planted by an Hitler in our environment. That is where we disagree. On Biafra, he has a right to Biafra. You know, on the right of Igbo, are Igbo people treated fairly? No. Are my people treated fairly in Ekare? No. Have you been seeing the road between Ekare and Akure, a federal road? Horrible. People get kidnapped. My mother is a farmer, a cocoa farmer. She stopped farming cocoa because she cannot bring those produce from the village to the market because the roads are bad. And I know the same thing goes in Umaya or in Aguleri or in Nkpo, where farmers will not be able to bring their products to the town. This problem affects every nook and cranny of Nigeria. The struggle for self-determination is not about Nnamdi Kanu, it's about the Nigerian people. And I think we should be very careful in trying to ascribing power to a more or less powerless person.
Do you think that the OPC phenomenon had also led to the creation of other militant organizations, either as a response to or as an extension of the quest for ethnic supremacy? I mean, we used to have the Bakassi and the Ibusu boys back in the day.
Lucy, I'll make one confession here. I would say clearly, I think the OPC was the first organization in our modern history to sort of physically express anger. And I have to be careful here, I live in the UK. Physically express anger and resist state oppression, which means it was the first organization that looked the military in the eye and said it's fire for fire, you know. And I think that gave courage to a lot of self-determination. One people don't know, I was part of the Ijaw struggle in the Niger Delta. I was part of the people who supported Kayama Declaration. I worked with a lot of comrades in the Niger Delta, Oronto Douglas of late, Isaac Nagbatan, and we supported the quest for Kayama Declaration. So I think the OPC actually gave quite a number of people the courage to say you can look the state in the eye. Well, I think over time the OPC metamorphosed and decided, look, war is not bread and butter, it's not tea and milk. You know, we need to approach this in a very sensible way.
Do you think that Nigeria can have an honest discussion on renegotiating the basis of our nationhood without talking about disintegration?
I do not support the idea that we cannot talk about disintegration. I personally do not believe the unity of Nigeria is not negotiable. The unity of Nigeria is negotiable. Nigeria is made up of ethnic nationalities that were more or less state nations. There was the Oyo Empire. The Igbos are Republican. They were kingdoms before we became Nigeria. So we should be able to have honest discussion even about disintegration. We should be able to look at the pros and cons. So we should be able to discuss anything in a democracy. In England, where I live, the Scottish discuss independence. Northern Ireland discuss independence. But we need to be able to draw the line and know where we cannot thus far no more. When we discuss negotiation, at what price? If disintegration will be at the price of the new republic becoming an enemy state to Oduduwa Republic, the answer from me is no. If being together is going to kill more people, the answer for me is we need to look at ways of resolving our crisis. So I'm not against people calling for Agege Republic or whatever republic they want. You know, that is freedom, that is liberty. But we need to be very careful. Look, war is as someone who has had the sounds of bullets, you know, as someone who stood at crossfire, I know the implication of a war. And it's not cowardice. It's just that when you go to Syria today, Assad is still there, but the country is destroyed. When you look at Biafra, Ojukwu went to Ivory Coast with his personal Mercedes and his family, looted Biafra Bank, had a mansion facing the seaside. Over 2 million Igbos died. When Ojukwu came back, guess what? He joined MPN, the so-called Hausa Fulani party. He married a young damsel and lived his life ever happy. If you go to Enugu Onisha Road, you still see Biafran soldiers, amputated hands, begging for arms to feed. So we should be very careful. when we're talking about disintegration.
A few days back, you condemned parents who had withdrawn their children from schools in the Southeast over claims of immunization by the military. Yeah. We have found that those same reactions have found way in Kwara State, in Rivers State, and in your own hometown on those states. Now, what are your reactions?
The same. We should not, because of our personal hatred for a particular leader or a particular ethnic group, discomfort our young children and spread rumors that will stop their education. For every second a child misses school, you're injuring the future of that child. Whether it happens in Ondo, in Enugu, in Oyo, in Lagos. We are in 2017. Other kids, where I come from, my kids, my daughter, who is just 15, is designing an app in 2017. A child in Umaya, in Owerri, in Lagos, should be busy designing an app. So we should not, because of our politics, cause rumors that will destroy the future of our kids. So if people of Ikare are behaving in such an imbalanced way as the people of Umaya, the same reaction.
In April of 2015, sir, you expressed disappointment in how the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission barred private media firm AIT for its promotion of hate and division during the 2015 presidential elections. Yes. You did advise the President Buhari to disband the partisan NBC and appoint professionals who would hold media platforms accountable. Now, it does appear that advice was discarded because just lately, the NBC shut down a radio program that was discussing the Asaba massacre.
Look, and if you see my response, I was quite disappointed, and I said it to the DG that this is undemocratic, this is anti-democratic, this is the wrong use of the power invested on you, because that power, you're holding it in trust for the Nigerian people, not for Buhari, the president. And I've had my misgivings with the Buhari presidency, and I'm very clear to condemn the Buhari presidency in a lot of stuff that I felt he should have done better. And I would continue to do so because my love and my commitment is to Nigeria. Buhari is just the president of the country. Nigeria is greater than Buhari. Where I find the president wrongfully misusing his power, like every other president, I would condemn him. And I think there are a lot of things this president could have done better. First, I was disappointed with the way he's handled the situation in the Southeast. I think he also aided and abetted Nnamdi Kanu with most of his incendiary statements, like the 97% versus 5%. They were very unnecessary. I find it personally embarrassing that the president has not visited the Southeast in his capacity to reach out personally to the people of the Southeast. Same way he should have visited other parts of the country. I find it personally disappointing that since he became president, we've stopped seeing him wearing those traditional clothes of other parts of the country. And I can assure you, maybe next year he will start wearing the regalia of other people. So I think this president has sort of withered away some of the trust Nigerians have for him. And it will take a long time for him to get it back. So on the NBC action, it was wrong. It's as wrong as when Gridlock was doing the same. So I think we should be, the truth is the truth. Even if the candidate you supported became the president of the country, Nigeria first before that person.
Is Nigeria's new whistleblowers policy paying off in the fight against corruption?
I think it's the most creative instrument created by any Nigerian government. The whistleblower policy, it's amazing. Has it achieved enough? I would not say yes, but has it been good? Yes, it's a fantastic thing. It should be encouraged, it should be developed, it should be done in such a way that it's easier for people to whistleblow, and it's easier for people to also recover funds, and the funds should be declared public so that people will know what they got from whistle. I think it's a fantastic policy.
You recall that whistleblowers Intia Thompson of the Directorate of Technical Cooperation and Aaron Kais of the Police Service Commission are both facing persecution for exposing corrupt acts at the various organizations. Now, why do we encourage whistleblowing if there's actually no provision for protection of whistleblowers?
That's why I said we need to look at the laws and the regulations and not just look at it, we need to strengthen it to protect whistleblowers. In the UK, I keep referring to the UK because that's been my experience since 1999. That's where I've lived. You have a right towards whistleblowing and you'll be protected, and I think we need to look at that. And I do not think the APC as a party has lived up to its term as to when he was in opposition in trying to protect the rights of people like that. And not just them, even civil society. Nigeria is going through a lot of moral shortage. Nigerian civil society is almost at the lowest ebb, as I've ever seen in my life. People they are more caricature activists now. That is for a price. Gone are the days when people sacrifice, their personal interest for the country. I did a tweet on NGO. The NGO industry is as bad as the Ministry of Exploitation that you call religious organizations now. They are all there for the money. People are collecting millions of dollars from international donors on behalf of the poor of Nigeria, and they're using it to buy jeeps and building fine houses in Aja. They're as bad as the politicians we condemn. And I think gone are those days when, if this had happened, the CLO would have been at the forefront of the fight to protect these people you're talking about. Gone are those days when if a student is expelled unjustly by the university, someone would be right there in court fighting for them. Because now, if that student goes to a chamber, the activists will tell them, look, I still need money to fuel my car. So we miss the days of the Gani Fawehinmis, the Bamidele Aturus, and those who are there, just for the people. So we are the lowest ebb in every sector in our country.
Mr. Kayode, being a staunch supporter of the Buhari administration, how would you analyze his government in view of the many pledges made to Nigerians?
Well, I think if I'll put it on a scorecard, out of 10, if you'd ask me to score this government, I'll score them 4. Because the expectations were high, the people were there to support them, the people wanted that change, and people wanted the government to be able to live to its word. So I don't think the government has lived to its expectation. But if we have an election today, and the choice is still between gridlock and Buhari, the choice is still going to be Buhari for me. Because corruption, I'm very passionate about anti-corruption. And this government has shown that at least there can be an effort to tackle corruption. They've not done enough. For me personally, I would take those people to Babish and shoot every one of them, But I can't do that. It's a democracy. You have to go through the process, the judicial process. So I think in terms of effort, I'll say yes, but we could have done better than this, And I think it's for the Nigerian people to decide. If in 2019, Buhari decides to stand for election and PDP is there, the choice is Nigerians will decide. For me, I would not think I would, you said staunch supporter. I don't think I would openly, staunchly campaign for this president in 2019. But that does not mean I would not support the efforts of his government. In 2019, it's a big question mark. It depends on who comes out. But one thing I am sure, PDP cannot produce a president on my behalf in this country.
Meanwhile, it's interesting how you keep calling ex-presidents
gridlock. Yes.
I'd want to know the reason why.
Because Jonathan had an opportunity to change Nigeria. This was a young man who had a PhD. I was personally happy that we had someone from the Niger Delta who felt the pain of the people of the Niger Delta. I was so pleased then that we fought. I don't know if you know this. We fought for the rights of Jonathan to become president. We campaigned around the world. Even Sahara Reporters founder Shore led a protest in New York. I led several protests in London and across the world so that the rights of Jonathan will be respected to become the then acting president. And this man became president, and he made such a shame of a PhD that because of Jonathan, people no longer say they have a PhD in anything, and he had Nigeria went on a gridlock. The only reason Buhari became president was because Jonathan was so bad. Buhari had already finished his time. He cried, he wept in 2011 when we finished that election. And he said, thus far no more. But Goodluck was so bad that Buhari had to become president. And at this stage of our life, we should be having young, dynamic people ready to take over the reins of leadership and transforming our country. For me, my age mates in the students' movement had become presidents in other countries, in Burkina Faso, wherever you find them, people in most of the social democratic movements, they are retiring now. And it's up to young people to take over this country, to take their fate in their hand. The sad thing, my dear sister, is that the young people are actually not even worse than the people they want to change. You know, people who criticize Dino Melaye on Facebook, when they see him in Abuja airport, they are the ones doing selfie. You know, people who criticize Saraki, they are now queuing up for the invitation to the wedding he's having for his kids in 3 days. You know, so you look at this country and you cry and you weep for the fate and the future of this country. But one thing I am sure is that when I was young, I paid my price. I stood on the side of the truth. I'm proud of that legacy. I can look to the face of my children and said, I did my best for the country.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us in the studio.
Thank you.